So hello QI learners. For this video, I'm going to do a bit of a change of tact. So instead of talking about theory, I'm going to talk about a project that we've got here at ESH that's actually had some successful results. So we've been delivering QI training and support for a while now, and some pieces of work have shown really positive outcomes. So I'm here today with Myra, who is our endoscopy matron, and you came through the QSA practitioner training about, what was it, 2 years ago?
2019.
2019.
Yes, yeah.
And you came with a project already in mind.
Yes, yeah.
And so could you explain about what it was you were hoping to achieve when we all first met when you were on that program?
So when I joined the program, it was very clear in my mind that what I want to do is pre-assessment. Just to give you a background, back in 2015, we already piloted what we call pre-assessment service in the unit. And it was very clear to us at the time that we have to do this because A, it improves patient experience, B, it improves patient safety, and not to mention, improving DNAs and cancellation. It is a gold standard, and it is something that we really want to do.
So I think that's an interesting point, because you had a problem that you knew about, that the pre-assessment service would be something that would resolve some of the issues around patient cancellations and DNAs and identifying those problems earlier. So something that we often say to people who are starting QI projects is you shouldn't start with a solution in mind. And so having one step for your project is not the right way, and you should start with a problem. But in your case, the implementation of the thing that you wanted to do, which was pre-assessment, was in itself a problem. It was a challenge. And so your project later became all of those steps to gradually get more patients pre-assessed and get those beneficial outcomes. We were just talking about the scoping activity that you did at the beginning of your project to try and get a clearer idea of what was happening in terms of patients and the outcomes that you were trying to prevent. And I can see that you did a Pareto analysis, and if I zoom in on that, which I'll show on the screen, you identified that the biggest problems were around patients failing to arrive and guidance not being followed, and I think it's around things being identified on the day that you could have found out about beforehand. Is that right?
So for most of it, it is that it is patients not following guidance for taking their bowel prep, for stopping or omitting medications, or for if they're diabetic, they're supposed to be following something else as well whilst they're fasting. So it's mostly that, and pre-assessment, as we know, would help with that, because obviously every questions that the patient have prior to coming to the procedure, then they'll get clarity about it, and then they will do it properly. And if they need to stop something, they would stop it in a timely manner. And thus, when they come to the procedure, we know that it's safe to do.
So, if I'm understanding, it's beneficial from a clinical sense because you're identifying any potential problems and you're sort of intervening earlier, which is best practice thing to do, but also it's good for the patients because maybe alleviate any anxieties they've got. It's better patient experience.
That's what I always say. It's most importantly, because obviously at the end of the day, it's the patient that we want, to look after. It's the patients that we cater for. And improving their experience is of utmost importance because, as you said, we alleviate their anxiety. Some of them, they don't want to come for the procedure, but after we've talked to them, explained the procedure to them, then it changes their mood.
And help them then.
And imagine just one cancellation. That means that's a waste slot, and at the same time, that patient that canceled, you have to book into another wastage.
So you knew this was really worthwhile doing and that there was a genuine problem here. And I can see that you kind of scoped out some ideas on a driver diagram in your original project, which you did with my colleague Emma Jones. Shout out to Emma. But,
Thanks, Emma.
So, and you had a plan to train some staff, implement some new roles, roll out some training. So what actually happened when you got to the implementation? Did it sort of run smoothly? Were there any things?
Because, as I've said, we have started back in 2015, and then we carried on doing just pre-assessment of high-risk procedures and high-risk patients. Obviously, it's face-to-face pre-assessment, and that obviously is out of the question when the pandemic hit, because you would want to reduce the amount of patient contact you have instead of increase.
Yeah.
So then this idea of telephone pre-assessment came because as soon as the patient comes, we just prepare them, put cannula, get them dressed, and then they're ready to go into the procedure room. So very minimal patient contact in admission. And B, we want to also protect staff so that they don't have a lot of patient contact. So I was thinking it's a win-win.
So before we get to what happened when you were really implementing it, I think it's a really important point there that you were making, that you went for a remote approach using the telephone pre-assessment as a result of COVID. So you're kind of forced into doing that.
Yeah.
But consequently, it was actually something that ended up being more effective.
Because we could have just said, okay, we're not pre-assessing and we're just going to wait for the patient to come. On the day of the procedure, we do our assessment. But because it could be that on the day you'll find something and then either patient will be canceled or it's not safe to go ahead with the procedure. So we do know that that's not gold standard. That's not ideal.
Yeah.
So we started pre-assessing most of our patients by doing telephone pre-assessment. And then, so this is, we're talking around April.
So shall we take a look at the data, which we sort of did a little analysis of the other day, which shows quite positive outcome. In the chart here, what we've got is about 2 years of monthly data on the number of patients who were being cancelled for one reason or another and why they were. And there were some within this data who are positive ones because you've actually identified problems earlier, and other ones who were negative ones where they just didn't turn up, which was the problem originally.
Yeah.
And what we can see here is the positive cancellations where you pick something up in advance have been consistently increasing over the last 2 years.
Yeah, I'd say it's more increase, isn't it?
A little reduction there at the start of 2020, probably due to COVID, and it's just been continuously increasing. So what stages were you implementing stuff during that kind of period of time?
Yeah, so first period of 2020, that's when, pandemic started, isn't it? So by the time we get to April, May, we started pre-assessing patients, all of the patients as much as we can.
So that's right around here where it starts improving.
Yes, yeah. And then around December of 2020, when COVID, the second wave hit again. I think on the first quarter of 2021, just for everyone's information, we had a reset with the booking team. And I think if I may say, and if I may give a bit of advice in a sense, sometimes opportunity comes to you in a weird way. Because what happened then was booking team was being reset, meaning for 2 weeks, they're not actively going to be booked. So I told myself and the team, I said, well, actually, we can capitalize on this because they're not booking a lot of patients. So let us now see what we've got now, pre-assess all these patients that we have, then it gives us that sort of leeway.
Right, so were they working sort of at a lower capacity,
yes.
so they have the freedom to test something? So yeah, that's a really great example.
So what happened was, I said, this is the time that we can now start full pre-assessment because we start slow, and then as it builds up, then we increase our nurses to support it. I said, I think it's doable at this point now. So I took the risk. Yeah. I took the risk, and then we did it, and after that we didn't look back. As you can see, that's when it started.
Yeah, so you've got like a natural PDSA test there because that team were working on a smaller scale than usual, so that gave you the opportunity to try it out. And you can see that as that was implemented, they're picking up more of the issues in advance.
Yeah.
But the thing that you were originally concerned with, the DNA rate, which was sort of peaking around the time that COVID hit us, can see that that's precipitously declined around about that time that you were implementing. So the data looks brilliant, and I think that this is clearly a positive change that you've made. Do you think that it's going to be something you'll be able to sustain in the long term?
Definitely. As I've said, we're not looking back. It's now the way of life in a sense.
Yeah.
So it is, as we know, it's gold standard. As we know, it's safe. The only thing that we need to do now is just keep on improving, to keep on evolving. We still have to develop a lot of things. So we are now working on a pre-assessment booklet for staff nurses, for our trained nurses, so that when they go into the role, because we have competency checks as well, and that they will be equipped with resources. We have, I think challenges would always happen because we don't want to stop where we are now. We don't want to be stagnant. We want to continue to evolve, continue to improve. There's so much that we still can do.
Um, as
I
a
could see-
gastroclinical lead, what I would have been involved in the exposure is knowing that this was something Myra was already doing. But as with all very good projects, actually, sometimes they run so well that the reason you don't have direct like knowledge of exactly what's happening is because it's running so well. You don't hear the problems actually. So I think that's the easy way to put it. As clinical lead, I knew this was happening, but it was running already, so it was kind of part of our process because Mara did such a good job.
would you recognize there having been any benefits for your patients from having done it?
Absolutely. I think really this project has really had both a big impact on patient safety, because it's just showing that we identify the patients who should be coming for their procedures on the day, and avoiding ones that would be more unwell, unsafe to have it. So a patient safety component here is really addressed really well with the pre-assessment clinics. But on top of that, it's much better patient experience. They aren't taking lots of laxatives and feeling really rough with them when they don't have to. So really, from a patient experience and patient safety point of view, I think that this is a really big plus for us.
Are there any tips or suggestions that you would have for other departments that want to do similar things, such as, having a pre-assessment or taking an element that they've done in the hospital and making it remote?
It was a novel project which didn't have like allocated staffing at the start. So we had to make good, efficient use of the people we had at the time, construct the program. And Myra did this admirably and fantastically so that actually it could run. Yeah. So I think it'd be wrong for me to say there were no challenges, but they were really well overcome by Myra.
I mean, a lot of these kinds of projects, they do tend to fizzle out, or the engagement wanes over time. And I've noticed when I've come up to your board in person that there's quite a sort of a feeling of a strong team dynamic, and that there's a sort of optimistic, a sort of can-do culture. I don't know if that's something that I'm imagining, or is that genuine? Because I'm wondering what the secret ingredient is that you guys have been able to follow this through for a number of years, where other areas sometimes struggle.
I think you've hit the big question on the head, which is what drives durability and quality improvement. And I think really, to sum it up, it's all about leadership and teamwork done to an exceptional level. For me, my mantra is take care of your people, take care of the service and the equipment within it, and have that happiness, and have some fun in really doing something good. And I think those components are what Myra does as well. We take care of the people that we are using and engaging to make these improvements, and by doing that, everyone actually works together, and that's what drives a plan and keeps a project working.